Good morning, everyone. Here we are for the Sunday Mindset session, and Tony is dancing, singing, and just doing his thing on this Sunday morning and getting out of his comfort zone. I know he's got this little twinkle in his eye, that smile on his face to show a little bit of vulnerability on this Sunday. So that is what it's all about. As we talk through our mindsets on this Sunday morning, Tony's advocating that for all of us and getting outside his little comfort zone there with a little grin and smile on his face. How are you this morning, Tony?
Well, Luke, I'm inspired by you, mate. I've watched, scroll through my Facebook, and every second post, it seems to be you doing a dance. And I thought, well, hey, you know what? If it's good enough for that bloke, it's good enough for me. So there you go. There's a little dance to kick off the day.
It's all about attention and awareness. And, you know, it actually brings me to the topic of today. So, you know, what are you really listening to, or are you really listening? So I guess in terms of Facebook and exposure and ideas and influence, you're really listening, aren't you, Tony?
I'm listening to you, mate. So listening to you, listening to your advice. No, I think it's great. I love the fact that you're doing that. And so it causes me to stop. And I know you're doing it for that reason, also to pump yourself up, give yourself a bit of energy. And it's about doing things different. It's about awareness, awareness, awareness. So how do we go and create awareness for ourselves? There's a gazillion different ways that you can do it. That one seems to work for you. And mate, I was just patiently waiting for you to get the whole internet Zoom thing set up, and thought I'd have a little sing-song, and here we go.
Well, it gets us both into the mood, you know, puts a smile on our faces. And this is what we've got to think about, the influence that we can give. And I know you put that video up last week about the guy dancing on the mountain and what kind of influence that he had. And I guess in listening then comes influence. So it's really interesting to think about, are we really listening, Tony?
Well, it's such a underrated skill. And listening, a lot of people hear things, but they don't truly listen. And so it's about, are you truly listening? Are you actively listening to what's going on? You know, there's so many other things that go on around us, distractions. We just talked about, you know, Facebook feeds and whatnot. You might have TV, you might be at a park and watching something else, like I'm at a park here now. Wherever, there's so many things going on. But listening is all about being present, being in the moment, and truly listening to what that person has to say. And I know we're going to get into it throughout the course of the morning, but it's such a powerful skill. Well, I recently had one of my clients call me up probably about 2 months, just before Christmas, and he said, you know what, you're an amazing listener. And I thought, well, that's amazing. I know I talk a lot here on a Sunday morning, and you and I joke about it. But as a coach, those who've been coached by me will know that there's no way in the world that I talk anywhere near as much as what I do on a Sunday morning mindset session with you, mate. So it's all about listening, because, you know, I want to understand what's going on. It's about asking the questions and then rocking back on my heels. And there's a real art to it. And I've been doing it now for, 30 odd years in that capacity, from a sales capacity. I mean, listening is an absolute weapon, when it comes to selling. There's two key weapons when it comes to selling: questions and listening. And it's no different when it comes to coaching.
Questions and listening. Write that down, guys. That's a great one for us to all explore. I've normally got the pen and paper here, so I've got to get towards that happening as well, so I can actually take some notes from the great man, Tony Meredith. So what was it? Listening and
questions and listening. They are the two most valuable weapons you've got in any sales conversation. And so you think about yourself with your own business. You'll be asking questions of people. You'll be exploring. You'll be wanting to understand what they're looking for, etc. Then once you've heard them, you don't go into the conversation and go, hey, g'day, Luke, we're Search Party Property. We do buyers agency and our fee is X, right? You just don't do that, right? A lot of people do, unfortunately. But what I'm suggesting is take a very different approach and listen. I'll give you a real life example. So I had this conversation earlier this week with one of my clients who's wanted to sell a particular item. It was a robotic pool cleaner. He rang me and said, I need to sell more. I said, fine. So what he's been doing is just straight out going, well, hey, you want to buy a robotic pool cleaner? Whereas and the whole idea is this thing then cleans pools in between the 4 weeks that he's not there. So I said, well, why don't you do it differently? You say, if there's a leafy backyard, they say, yes, okay. I say, look, do you have a lot of leaves that fall down? Oh, yeah, we do. Oh, what do you do with those leaves? Well, on a Saturday morning, I got to get out there and I got to scoop it out of the pool. Oh, really? And how long does that take you? Oh, that takes me about an hour. Oh, really? And you can see where I'm going, right? So what I'm doing is I'm asking questions and leading that person to where I want to get to. And so it's not about going, hey, do you want to buy a robotic pool cleaner? Hey, do you want to buy a buyer's agency service or whatever? It's about question, listen. And then based on what you're hearing, you frame up the offering accordingly.
I guess, Tony, there's going to be some leading questions in a sales environment, and in a conversation environment, it can be sort of open questions, and then, really bring yourself back to really listening to someone's story, which is going to be very different in conversation. So those questions that you ask are really important, and then the listening that is required is then even more important.
Oh, absolutely, because you may not get the answer that you're looking for as well. So you might go into a sales conversation, you might have 4 or 5 questions that you want to ask, you've got a little bit of a script for yourself, but if you don't get the answer that you're looking for, well, then you've got to head off in a different direction. So you just can't plow ahead and go, oh, well, question number 3 is blah, 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 if it's now all of a sudden become non-relevant. So it's important to be able to listen, and then it's important to be able to be agile and to be able to flex based on what's coming up. Right, so it doesn't matter what your preconceived questions were, you've got to now flex. And so the same happens in a coaching conversation, the same happens in any conversation, right? But the big one for me with listening is create the environment to listen. What do I mean by that? Shut all the distractions down. Shut all the distractions down and get incredibly present in that moment. Listen to someone as you would like to be listened to. Like when you tell a story, how do you feel if someone's, hang on a second, just put the phone on, hang on, beep, beep. You know what I mean? How would you feel in that situation versus, absolutely give your all to listening to that particular person?
Well, we got mums come on, Sean and Kelly with Tony Gallagher. Kat's also here. Arrett, Ken, Nigel, Johnny, many others.
Oh my gosh!
Sunday.
Holy dooly! Wowee!
It's a great audience already. Sean says good morning from Kelly and himself. Tony Gallagher says, I thought I'd drop in and listen. Nice. Good, Tony. Straight onto it. The other Tony is on fire. Ken Murray says, yes, I probably don't listen as much as I should. I just tend to talk too much. So good realization and good awareness. And that's where it starts from, Tony, when it comes to listening, is having that awareness about what you are and what you're about. I know we jokingly said about our conversations that we have on a mindset session in the morning, and it's not about us sort of coaching or asking. It's the competition for airspace on this Sunday morning mindset session, isn't it, Tony?
Oh, without question. It's an absolute fight for survival. No, so, what the viewers could do is they could go back to, we did a coaching session with Greg and Kamal about 4 months ago, and there was an enormous amount of listening that went on in that environment. So, look, there's certainly plenty of listening in that space, but yes, ordinarily, yes, it's about who gets the last word in.
Yeah, just see if I can get Tony to stop talking is really what it's all about. Maddie's come on, a few others. Kelly actually comes on herself and says hi to Luke and Tony. And Ken says, very good advice, Tony. Get rid of the distractions.
Can I just go back to Ken's point? Sorry, mate.
I don't think that's Ken's problem. He's just got stories. The guy is full of stories.
Which is wonderful, right? I just want to go back to Ken. He was saying around the whole awareness. You talk about realization awareness. In order to change, there's a formula. There's a formula in order to change, and it's called awareness plus action equals change or transformation. So it all starts with you have to be aware. So Ken has to be aware, and he's created great awareness, or shown great awareness, that he is aware that he talks too much. Now he's got to take some action, because just because you're aware of something, you could easily go, I couldn't be stuffed. I'm happy to talk a lot, right? So there's plenty of people who may say that. Versus I'm aware. Now, what are the things I can do about it? I've got to take action, and that's the secret to transformational change.
It's a secret sauce. It's like putting the chocolate topping or the sprinkles on top of the.
But look like the salt, the salt bay, right? So
that's
with the
right.
salt.
Well, I was going to refer to it as the ice cream, like really resonating with Ken and the analogy behind ice creams and getting that soft serve cone. Do you just have the vanilla, right? Or you put the chocolate on top with the sprinkles and the little flake on the side?
You've got to have the extras, right? So that's the first thing. The second is I'm just thinking about Ken. How would it be Ken down there? He's got the mobile van and he gets the sprinkles like this. He's holding the ice cream down here, just like the Salt Bay, and he's just putting the sprinkles on the ice cream. And how magnificent would that be, right? So that would go viral. That, Ken, that's what I want you to do. Not sure about the health and, the hygienic factor, but nonetheless, I want to see you with the ice cream down the bottom, like the Salt Bay. Google up Salt Bay if you're unsure of who I'm talking about, and put the sprinkles down on the ice cream.
Fantastic. All right, Tony, we're 10 minutes in, so we may as well get started on the conversation or the topic at hand. We've been throwing a little bit of story and analogy around, are you really listening today? And I think it's a really important point. I actually think for myself that I feel that I'm, maybe like some people might point out that I'm not as good listener or at times, but I feel like I'm more grounded with myself personally these days. And I will sit back at times, and I do pick myself up at times, which is really awesome. I know that I had just over the last couple of days, someone had a conversation, and they replied to me with, "Oh, this person said this and this and this," and straight away I knew the words were going to be BS, and I put a BS straight away on it rather than listening to the whole conversation. And that's where I can reflect on myself to say, listen to the whole meaning of the story behind it rather than interject and say BS straight away. Maybe I could find out a little bit more information, or maybe I've cut out some of the story because I've gone straight in with the BS.
Is that where the topic came from? So, because you came up with this week's topic. So,
no, I didn't.
Where did it come from?
Just some thought and feeling around coaching and ideas, and what we work on with clients. So that was the whole sense of it. But maybe a number of different factors that have come up, and I'm just like, are we really listening? And are we just sitting back and being grounded? Like, I feel very grounded in this chair right now, and sitting back and listening to you, Tony, about the conversation about what's going on and the stories that you're telling me. And just not having getting the feeling within myself that I need to add or need to interject. And you do bring up some points at times where I was like, I can add value to this. Straight away, that we don't need to feel like that we've got all the answers, and maybe we need to hear it a little bit more sometimes and let the free flow of what you're saying, Tony, be the highlight of what's going on right at that point. And then allow for me to just sit back and then respond at a later time, because I might be missing those key points.
Well, everyone's got enormous value to add. And so, by you shutting that person down, again, I would reverse that and say, well, how would you feel if you started to tell me a story and I shut you down and said BS for 10 seconds in? You go, oh, hang on a second, hang on, but I've got more to say, right? And so, that's the other thing. It's like, be very respectful, be very courteous of people. I'm also conscious that you don't want to sit there for half an hour listening to someone drag on and on and on and on. So there's a balance here, but it's about let people.
Tony, that was in the first 10 seconds. So
fair enough. Well, so there you go. So in the first 10 seconds, so there could have been some, like you've pointed out, some nuggets of gold that might have come at about, seconds, 30, 45, a minute, whatever, that you have missed out on because you've gone boom, straight to the nut. That's a whole lot of rubbish. That's BS. So listening it's active listening, and it's about being present, removing the distractions, and sitting there without judgment as well, because that's judgment, right? So by going, oh, that's BS, you're judging, versus, no, I'm going to listen and I'm going to be objective around this as opposed to subjective. I'm going to be objective. I'm just going to sit back and listen to this. No judgment. And just see where this goes, right? See where it goes.
Where it went, Tony, on this conversation was really interesting. It was like, I guess a reflection for everyone that is watching now is we often then interject straight away, thinking that we've got all the answers without hearing the full story from that person. So maybe they frame it in the wrong way, but you've got to allow that story to happen, which is really important. And then for me, I corrected myself and said, okay, well, tell me more about what they said. And maybe that lost the flow. Maybe I didn't get the full explanation. So that is a learning for me. And I guess that's what we want to share with everyone else is if we interject straight away without hearing the full story, or, at least a couple of minutes of the story, then we're not serving ourselves, because we're not sitting back in our own self and we're responding too quickly, and we're not hearing the full story about what they're going, because we actually can have even a better answer or a better question to follow up with if we allow more of that story.
100%. So that's wonderful awareness for you. So then it's about, well, what are you going to do differently?
Yeah, sit back, be grounded, not show the body language and emotion around that, and take it in without judgment, like you said, in terms of words, but also in terms of body language, and really just see through the whole story without the reaction, the response. The reaction body language-wise, the response verbally. I think that's really important. A couple of comments from Ken. He says that, yes, got to just close my mouth, maybe you need to eat ice cream a little bit more, Ken. That might have an opportunity to maybe listen a little bit more. I like that. Tony says, Ken, active listening, not just closing your mouth and not really listening. Daniel says, anyone having sound issues or only me? I think it's just you, Daniel, at the moment. Sounds like everyone else can actually hear at the moment. So maybe you want to shut off and then shut back on. Hopefully that will help you. Ken says, sound is good, Kelly. Maybe he's referring to Daniel. Anyway, so I'm not sure what's happening there, but I think we seem to be A-okay from this side of the...
Yeah, I can hear you clear, mate. Clear as.
So the first item I want to talk about today is, are you listening to yourself? We actually talked about listening to other people, so forth, and we're going to get back into that a little bit later. But are you actually listening to yourself? Tony?
So just explain this for me, mate. So are you saying listening to what we're saying, or are you saying listening to yourself as in our thoughts?
Both.
Okay.
It's very general idea of it, and I guess I come into this thought process is what is our path? What is our journey? Are we actually reflecting on what's going on for ourselves? Are we hearing about what we're actually talking about as well, which we often say on these mindset sessions?
Yeah, so quite often I may have a conversation and I'll sit back at the end of that and I'll think to myself, well, I would have said that a little bit differently, and that's okay. So that's about me listening to myself, and that's also about me wanting to challenge myself to be the very best version that I can be. I'm very fortunate that I get paid to listen to people. That's what I do. But I can always improve. There's always areas for me to sharpen the saw, so to speak. So, listening to that, in regards to listening to your thoughts, one of the things I'd just be careful of is quite often we'll have negative thoughts come up. And so you don't want to be listening to those thoughts. So it's about recognizing that, our brain is designed to throw negative things at us to get us to be safe. It's all about avoiding danger. And you don't want to listen to all of that, because if you listen to every single negative thought that came into your mind, you'd probably not get off the couch and you'd just sit there and watch Netflix. So it's about recognizing that what are the thoughts that I want to challenge myself on, that I want to listen to, and what are the ones that I want to go, you know what, quieten down, reptilian brain. I'm not going to have any of that today, because I'm doing this thing. I'm going to overcome fear. I'm going to do some public speaking, make a sales call, run a kilometre, whatever it might be. Quieten down, brain. I'm doing this. And so I would challenge people to don't just, accept all the thoughts that come into our mind. By all means, listen to them, but then get rid of them.
Yeah, it's a great thought. I know when we first get up in the morning, it's always that struggle. Talking about my story to other people about running every single day, and that their thought process immediately is, how do you do it? What if you're sick? What if you're hungover? What if this? What if that? How's your body? How's your ankles? How's your knees? How are you? Like, how can you do this? And those immediate negative thoughts are coming out to other people's brains through the questions they ask. It's not kind of like, how do I be like you? It's, how is that actually possible?
Yeah, and
that's a negative thought, isn't it, Tony?
It's 100%, and that is a window into their thought process. So naturally, we can't see inside someone's brain. That's where, the non-verbals, the verbals, the actions, the non-actions, they're all things that we're doing to give us a bit of a flavour for what's that person really thinking. So when someone's firing off at you a whole lot of questions that are coming from a negative position, from a failure type position, then that's giving you an insight into their line of thinking, right? And that's all. So then about flipping that around and saying, well, if Luke's doing it, why can't I? Luke's an average guy from the suburbs. He just started off wanting to do a run for a week. Why can't I do that, right? And again, you don't have to go and compare yourself to where Luke is today. And we say that, firstly, if you can avoid it, don't compare at all, right? But I do understand that people look to compare in certain things. Well, compare yourself to when Luke started 3.5, or you correct me on the time, mate, but I think it's about that, years ago. Compare yourself to that guy. Don't compare yourself to the guy today who's done 1,100 of these or whatever the number is, because it's not a fair comparison. And we do the same all the time. We compare ourselves in an apples and oranges situation. As I said, if you can avoid comparing, do that. Don't compare. Inspire. So be inspired by people. So there's always people that are going to be further down the road that you are, and use that as inspiration to go, wow, that's what's possible. So you just said before, Luke, that you get asked, well, how is that even possible? Well, a different question would be that it is possible. Well, wow, like how can I do that? Because I've now seen that it's possible. And this goes back to the Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile back in the 50s. He did that. It's amazing. But that's not the end of the story. The story was then, a month later, someone broke this record, a 4-minute mile barrier that had never been done previously. Men had been trying it and failing. One guy did it. Guess what? A month later, an Aussie, John Landy, went and did it. Guess what? 12 months later, the first 3 place getters in a mile race ran under 4 minutes. So the point is that they saw this thing getting done and they went, oh my gosh. So what about that? When you're seeing Luke do 1,100 runs in a row, what about going, wow, what is it that he's doing to get him there? Because Luke's now got the blueprint. You see, success leaves clues. And so wherever we go, people that are further down the road than you have left little clues, little breadcrumbs. Read an autobiography, get to meet them, whatever it might be. Ask those sorts of questions, as opposed to going, well, how could you possibly do that? What if you're crook? What if you need? Blah, 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 blah. It's giving you an indication of where their mindset's at, and it's not a good one.
Yeah, I guess we're talking about listening to yourself, which is a really important part of what's going on for you internally and externally, and your actions. And Tony's pointed out quite correctly about the amount of negative thoughts that come into our brain. And I guess I'm thinking about it in terms of that vision or purpose or path that we're leading. Are we actually, listening to ourselves? And Kelly said it quite well. Said, I only listen to your intuition because they are all positive. So I guess the intuition of, that path, that journey, that purpose for ourselves is where we probably want to be listening more of too, than some of those bouncing around of negative thoughts that come into our brain at times when things are a little bit tough, like when we're waking up in the morning and we're super tired. As an example. I'll get you to comment on that in a slight little bit. I've got Sean who said, can't remember who said it. A few years ago, they said the best advice we give to others is usually the advice we need to give to ourselves. We talk about it all the time. Since hearing it, I've noticed that it's very true of myself, and I've seen it similarly in others. So often the advice we're giving to others, it's actually resonating for ourselves. Ken Murray says, 100% Tony, we should all keep trying to sharpen the sword. We need to continually educate ourselves and keep improving. Just keep chipping away. Keep chipping away at the listening.
Yeah, absolutely. But you say it here regularly, Luke, that the advice that we're giving, so go back to Sean's point, the advice that we're giving is often advice that is good for you or for me. And absolutely, because we have the same human frailties that everyone does. And so it's about how do we become the best versions of ourselves. I said to a client on Friday, I said a particular story about where I was at and some of the shortcomings, and they said, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have expected that. Well, it's like, but hang on a second. If the coach is sitting there saying to you that they're absolutely perfect, my strong advice is run in the opposite direction as quick as you can, because it's BS. Because we all go through fears, anxieties, etc. It's just that someone like me is able to move beyond those a whole lot quicker than a whole lot of other people. But I have things come up all the time. But again, it's about swatting this stuff away, swatting away these negativities, swatting away the doubt, swatting away the lack of belief or faith, and forging ahead with the vision, the plan that I've got for myself.
Yeah, like Tony said, it's about that next time that those things happen, you make better decisions, you have better responses, react in a quicker amount of time. Same way for us in property investing, it's about making better decisions on investment to minimize the chance of mistakes and have better chance of success. Same way in a coaching or a mindset framework is better responses, better reaction, and you will lead to better success.
Yeah, absolutely. And those people that were coached by me, 2 or 3 years ago, they would attest that I'm very different today than what I was 2 or 3 years ago, and that's no different. You will be a better buyer's agent today than you were 2 or 3 years ago, and the same applies to, doesn't matter what the occupation. We'll all, well, I hope so. I hope we're all improving. That's the art of it all, about challenging ourselves to grow, to be the very best that we can. I'm not the best coach in the world, and so for me, it's about how do I get to be the best coach. You're not the best buyer's agent. How do I get to be the best buyer's agent? How do I go and achieve the things that I want to do? But you're right. There's going to be a whole lot of things that come into our mind that are going to want to throw us off course and get us to sit back down and be comfortable. And
Absolutely.
That's about, do I choose to listen, or do I choose to swat those away? And my advice is, swat those away.
Let's move on to, are others influencing your thoughts and actions without you listening to yourself?
Well, certainly others do. Others do influence your thoughts and actions. And, Jim Rohn famously said that you're the average of your 5 closest people. And I say that if you aren't happy with where you're at, there's 2 things that you should do. In fact, there's a gazillion things, right? But the first one is look in the mirror, and the bloke or woman that's staring back at you, start to accept responsibility, because you're where you are because of that person. The second thing is look at your friend group. Look at your friend group. So do others influence your thoughts and actions? 100%, right? And if you want to lift yourself up, then find people who are going to help lift you up. If you're hanging around negative people, pessimistic people, people who are failing, people who are not happy, and that's what you're taking in all the time, then that is absolutely going to rub off on you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's especially those negative thoughts, because like you said earlier, we've got a negative brain. The more of those negative thoughts, the chances are of, that the diminishing of yourself in terms of growth. And then we think about, on the positive side, we kind of need, Tony, I'd like to get your opinion on this, but we kind of need even a double the amount of positive than if it was a situation that we would have, half the amount of negative to get us down. We need double the amount of positive to get us up, because we often reflect on those negative sort of situations. Even if we are a positive person, you and I, as an example, and we're striving forward, but in the morning, it might be that struggle to get up in the morning. But if we reflect on other people that are doing the same, our friends group, who we are, and creating our habits and all those things, that can lift us up. But we kind of I feel like we need the double amount of positive to remain in that positive state. But if we have that negative state, even if we have half the amount of negative as opposed to the positive, we are going to be, falling back down.
Well, negative comes more naturally, so you've got to put some effort into being positive, and then when you do this for a while, it comes naturally. So that's the first thing that I'd say. The second is that, when you talk about waking in the mornings and struggling to wake in the mornings, then that's about changing the meaning. So if you that's how you're feeling, as opposed to going, well, whenever I wake up, I smile, and I smile because I know I've got another day ahead of me, right? And so it's not a struggle for me to bound out of bed. So it's about change the meaning, instead of going, oh gosh, it's a struggle, whatever. It's like, oh my gosh, like the sun's up, I'm ready to go. Let's rip in. What's ahead of us, right? And so, but the first thing I always do is I always smile. Always smile. Been doing it for years, right? And if you'd have a camera on me in my room, you'd think, gosh, that guy looks bloody stupid. But I mean, the point is that I always smile, because it's like, here we go again. Here we go again. We've got another opportunity to do something pretty damn cool.
Yeah,
doesn't always mean that the day goes swimmingly, right? I have plenty of days that don't go swimmingly, but if at least I can start the day with a smile on my face, if I can give myself some bandwidth or some clean air to be able to do something, then no, you go in front. Yeah, it's coming back on me. Yeah, unless you want to be in it, of course. You did. Okay.
Sharing. Tony loves it. He's got the audience going here. It is all happening up there in Brisbane.
It sure is. Look, we've got the dogs going. Anyway, so yeah, so it's all about, what do most people do when they start off in the morning? They grab their phone. They grab their phone. They then look through their phone. They either look at what someone else is doing and compare themselves. Oh my gosh, why are they further down the road than me? Now, you mightn't be consciously doing it, but this is what's going on. Or I look at my emails and I go, oh my gosh, that person's after me. That person wants this. That person's chasing this, but whatever it might be. What a dreadful way to start your day. Now, it doesn't mean that at some stage you don't address those emails, but why don't you give yourself a break? Why don't you give yourself an opportunity in the morning to give yourself, it might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it might be, to give yourself the best chance of having an awesome day. Set your day up. Set your day up. It's like, so I do a morning routine. It's like putting on some armor. My morning routine helps me put on some armor for the day because I know stuff's going to come at me. I know there's going to be spears at me and bullets at me and all sorts of things are coming at me, but I've got my protective armor on because I've given myself the best chance of success by starting my day off well.
So that's a little bit of prevention's better than cure, Tony.
Oh, of course it is. Of course it is. Absolutely. Why not get yourself in the right frame of mind? Why not take the first few minutes of the day to feel good about the fact that, you know what, you got your health, you're alive, you've got choice, we live in a lucky country. There's so many wonderful things to be grateful for, so many, as opposed to, I've got to go to this job. Guess what? I reckon there would be a number of people, particularly with COVID, because I know COVID hit us with unemployment, a number of people would happily swap out that job with you, right? So it's about, change your meaning, change the meaning. And if you really don't like your job, then do something about that. Right, but stop going through the job and whinging and whining and complaining. I've gone off on another tangent, haven't I? But whinging and whining and
complaining. I'm probably listening a little bit more today than normal, and I'm not cutting you off as much, Tony.
You're probably sitting there going, "Oh gosh, where is he going now?" Just put your seatbelt on and enjoy the journey.